You want to book as much acting work as you can, as often as you can. We get that. The thing is, you don't book acting work by focusing on booking acting work. The industry is more dynamic than that, and the art is more interesting than that.
By taking you inside the craft, the casting room, and the business, and bringing other industry experts into the conversation, we dig in. We pull back the curtain of the industry and show you how much power you really have as an artist. Here's the truth. When you bring your humanity to the work and the industry, you become an artistic leader, the kind of actor who books work.
Even after decades of working with actors all over the world, in our classes at the BGB studio, teaching, coaching, casting, directing, producing, acting, on set, on stage, behind the camera, and in front, nothing excites us more than seeing you express your unique artistic voice, humanize the business, and book work doing it.
We're here on the podcast in our online classes at the BGB studio to give you all the tools you need to be a championship-level working actor right now in an industry that desperately needs your voice and your leadership.
Yeah, industry and artistry. This is the only place you're going to hear this.
I'm Risa.
And I'm Steve. And this is the Acting Podcast from the BGB studio.
We are thrilled and moved by the response to the podcast. We love reaching actors all over the world, actors like you, who tell us that our podcast inspires them, informs them, and makes them excited and proud to be an actor.
Yeah, but make no mistake, an acting career is won by being in the consistent practice of the work, week after week, month after month, year after year. Success for an actor is in the doing.
So, here at the BGB studio, we offer the highest quality acting training for passionate, committed, talented, and ambitious actors. We see that kind of work transform talent into successful careers, and that makes us so happy.
There is no substitute for doing the work consistently, and we offer the work of success. We are the home of your 10,000 hours. We offer ongoing and 8-week on-camera auditions, scene study, and workout classes. They're available now.
So sign up now to secure your spot and get to work. Go to BraemanGarciaBraun.com/classes or click the link for classes in the podcast show notes. We'll see you in class. Welcome, everybody, to Season 2 of the Acting Podcast. This episode was recorded earlier in the year, pre-COVID, and we're excited to finally share it with you. We find the conversation in this episode to be relevant, vital, and inspiring, now, in fact, more than ever. Keep listening and enjoy. Today, we are thrilled to welcome to the Acting Podcast acclaimed casting director Mary Vernieu. Mary started her casting career working with me a few decades ago, first on The Doors with Oliver Stone, and since then she's built a huge casting business, one in which she honors and supports filmmakers, new and established, a hallmark of the kind of deeply collaborative work Mary and her Betty May team are known for. Mary has cast over 300 features and several TV shows during her career, including recently Dolomite Is My Name and Knives Out, and I, Tonya, Black Swan, and the list goes on and on and on. And the TV show Euphoria, a personal favorite. With an eye for talent in both actors and filmmakers, Mary has developed and enjoys long-standing working relationships with many acclaimed directors, such as Darren Aronofsky, David Ayer, David O. Russell, Robert Rodriguez, and Rian Johnson. In 2013, Mary won an Artios Award for the casting of Silver Linings Playbook and was nominated for 2 more Artios Awards last year for A Star is Born and Deadpool 2. In addition to her casting work, Mary has also recently ventured into producing for such films as Trust Me, Come See Me, and Spare Room. And Mary's company, Betty May, is named in loving homage to her mother and grandmother. Hi, everybody. We are here with the great Mary Vernieu. I'm going to get emotional, so get ready for that.
Oh, then I will too.
Okay. Steve, will you get emotional?
I'll keep it together for the both of us.
Thank you.
So Mary and I have known each other for decades, and we haven't seen each other in a long time. And you have graced our space here at BGB by coming from Venice to North Hollywood.
So happy to.
And so thank you for being here. And let's just dive in, shall we?
I want to know how it started. I want to know that first moment, that meeting between the two.
I remember that first moment.
I remember that first moment.
What was that moment for you?
What I remember is that being at the O'Neill and Bruce McVitie.
Yeah.
It's like you need to meet this amazing woman. because I was very unhappy working in the agency world, and I came to meet you over at the Carsey Warner lot.
At Radford,
At Radford.
Yeah.
And
I like the way you called the Carsey Warner lot. If only.
that's what, right?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah,
yes. On Grand. You were
Yeah.
doing Grand.
Yeah.
And it was just all such a whole new world to me. I was, and I was so excited to be able to do something different and creative, and it was an amazing.
And what was the first thing? So when you came and did that, I remember you were sitting on this gray couch and you were wearing a flowered dress and you seemed so young and innocent. But because Bruce said, you have to meet this person, I listened. So he says hello. I just texted with him this morning. Bruce says, hey.
Tell him I say
He's
hello.
acting again.
I know. I want to
Yeah.
get him. I'm like trying to figure something out.
Yeah, he's doing
find him
really great
something.
work.
He's good.
Yeah, he was
Good.
in When They See Us. He was one of the
Oh.
cops.
Oh, I haven't watched that yet.
Yeah,
I need
he's really
I need
good
to
in
watch
it.
that.
So for those of you listening, Bruce McVitie is an old mutual friend of ours, and he left acting to become a nurse. And then he came back to
And then he
acting.
came back because it was his passion, and he
Yeah,
had it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
So it was his true calling. So the first thing that we worked on together was The Doors,
Oh, okay.
as I was the casting assistant.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it was
yeah.
a wild thing.
That was a crazy entrance.
That was a
into,
crazy entrance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that?
I just remember it being like, is this really a job? Like looking for, because we were really trying to see if there we could find anybody who there was like a discovery
Yeah.
to play, for Jim Morrison. And so it was just this kind of like, I was like, you're looking for like what, it just seemed like a dream to
Yeah.
do that. And
Yeah.
Do you remember Brad Pitt's audition?
I don't remember Brad. I remember Keanu's audition.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I remember Val's audition. I don't remember Brad's
Well, Val
audition.
did a self-tape.
Yeah,
by-
he did a self-tape and
wasn't a
sent it
self-tape
in.
then.
And he fixed his teeth, right? Remember,
Yeah,
didn't he
yeah.
change like his teeth?
Then he did this, got a whole band together, and he just reenacted everything in the leather
Everything.
pants. And
Yes.
Yeah,
I do remember that. And I remember the open call at Fairfax High.
yeah.
But what I really remember about those days were just learning so much from you, because I learned everything that I know from you.
Wow. Like what?
Like everything, like about acting and what the craft of acting is, and how to love actors, and that what they do is a hard thing, and that you have to have some compassion for them, and love them for who they are and what they bring, and to give them support, because I think that they don't get enough of that. And so I think that that's one of the main things that you taught me, because you've always loved actors and always have had that heart for them, which I'm not sure that they don't think they get that everywhere where they go.
That's what I hear. But you feel like you and your team bring that into the work that you do?
Yeah, we really, really try. I mean, our office is like we had a it's very feng shui, and it has crystals everywhere, and we really try to ground the space so that when they come in, it's a calm place for them. We try to be as warm, and it's rough. Auditioning is rough. It's like interviewing for a job every day. It's a hard thing.
And what's that balance for you between, on the one hand, let's create a space in which they can thrive because it's good for everybody. On the other hand, know your shit and show up and do your job.
I leave that to them. If they don't show up and know their shit, then they're not going to get the job.
Right.
And I would think that if you're coming into an office that does a lot of different things, that it would be important to always be in good form, because then that's how you're going to bring them back again.
Sure.
But I do believe that everyone has a bad day. And so I always try to tell all my staff, I'm like, if you judged people by their last audition, you wouldn't have anybody to read. People have bad days, and people grow and they change. They, 1 year they might be having a terrible year, and then they might have personal stuff going on, and then they come back and they're in it. They're like in their groove. It's just, I think people do change and grow, and they learn and they become better actors the more work they put in.
And so when you see someone having a bad day or, just going up on their audition, what's your investment in them to bring them back a second time or a third time?
If they're right, and I can tell that it's a bad day, you'll get people that come in that aren't prepared and don't care. And then you're just like, don't waste my time. Don't waste all of our times. Like, just don't waste your time, my time. But I do try to give people a shot. And especially if you're like, they're so perfect, I wish they would they would get it together. So then you'll bring them back just because they're right for the role.
So just going back to the early days here, so you started in agenting, you said. Did you ever think even before then or before you walked into Reese's store that you wanted to be in casting?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't even really know what it was.
Yeah.
I was interning at what's now UTA. It was Bauer Benedict then, and then it turned. And then when I was in college, and then when I got out of college, I worked as an assistant, and it was not what I did not like it. That's a rough world. The agency world.
I think
it's a
so,
very
too.
rough world.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know how some of them do it. I think it's very, very hard. And so I was really unhappy. And I went to the O'Neill. My sister was running the O'Neill, and I went there for a summer, and I had the best time. And it was like I got to be in guest relations working with all the actors. And so I thought, wow, and so he told me about this job, and I was like, that sounds really great. And I really loved it. And I really, I just fell in love with casting.
So what? And this is really important because obviously you've done this since for decades and at this incredible level. What about, especially that experience, which I imagine was really intense, I'm guessing. What about that made you go, oh my God, that forever? Let's do that.
I just loved it. I loved every part of it because it was creative, but it was also business oriented. So, and you taught me how to make deals and how to, talk to the agents. Like that was the other part, learning how to manage the agents because you have to learn how to do that and in a way where they feel supported.
Oh my God, how do you manage an agent? This is great.
You support them. You try to make them feel supported and come from it of a place as everybody's just trying to do their job. And, agents are a special being, it's
Say more about that.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I think what they do is really, really hard. And I think they're always waiting for someone to take the client and the client to be unhappy. And anything that goes wrong in the person's career is their responsibility. If a movie doesn't perform, it's their fault. Every bit of it, every step of the way, it's a huge pressure. Yeah. And I think it's not, and it's like each agency competes with each other, but I think also within the agency, each agency, they compete with each other internally. Yeah, so you're not supported. I feel like you're never safe as an agent, and that's
interesting. Yeah, I get that. I struggle. Right this morning, I had a conversation with an agent who was pitching an actor so heavily. We've made an offer. It's for a guest part, but a very significant one in this pilot, and now they're negotiating at a ridiculous level. It's turned ridiculous. And so I just go to, hey, you know what? You guys wanted this. You got your client excited about this. Now you're being unreasonable. I don't know what to tell you. And I realize I lose my compassion. I get really impatient because suddenly you've turned a corner and now you're getting aggressive, and I just don't know. I don't have the patience for that.
I don't have the patience for that either. It's because they push you so hard, and you finally give them what they've asked for, and then they act like you never have helped them.
So what do you do? How do you manage that?
You make them feel like you're going to move on. You just don't, you kind of have to kind of fight back in the same, use the same ways they're communicating and go right back at them.
But what if you're invested in that actor? You really want that actor, and now it's turned into some weird negotiation when the actor should be in the project.
I'll do everything. Which is also things that you taught me, which is I'll call the manager, I call everyone on the team, I do everything I can to try and make them see sense.
Yeah.
I think that when you put the pressure back on them in that way and make them feel like they're putting the job at risk, that hopefully they hear you. Mm-hmm. The good ones will hear you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they do, and they have a tendency to overplay their hand.
Yeah, we just had that with somebody who screwed an actor out of a job because of it. And then they came back crawling. How do we put Humpty Dumpty back together was the question.
Right.
I said, it's not too late.
You don't.
Yeah, you don't.
But it speaks to the desperation, the deep, deep need, whether it's emotional just because their clients are looking at them saying, hey, let's make something happen, or their own financial need. And so it just dawns on me as you've used this word support both towards actors and agents, and I know you feel this way too, How do both of you, in the eye of all this deep desperation being thrown at you all the time, talking about this earlier, like, please help me, book me, like, make this happen for me, you're the gatekeepers or whatever that stuff they're throwing at you. How do you keep your shit together, maintain that generosity that you talked about, and keep coming back and doing this project after project?
You go.
Well, I don't, though. I don't do it as much as you do. I mean, you do hundreds of movies now. You've done so much.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you maintain that throughout all of that? I take breaks and, do a lot of other things. So I don't, because I don't know that I could have, I don't know that I could do, I know that I couldn't do what you do.
I think for me, number one, I have a great team. I have great people around me that support me. So I can't support, without them, I wouldn't be able to. They're all, it's like Lindsey Graham and Michelle Wade Bird. They've been with me for, 13, 14 years, and they're my team, and they help. They really do. They talk to people, and they make sure that the agents feel taken care of, so it's not all on me.
Yeah.
I also do other things. I owned a restaurant for 14 years.
That's so cool.
Which is so great.
Because that was my way of balancing out. I don't understand
It's a nice,
what I
relaxed
was
industry.
thinking, but,
Super chill.
it's easy.
One of the easiest things to do.
It's so easy,
Well, that's a long time to have a restaurant.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I got 4 years ago, I said, okay, it's enough. And when I did that, I was like, wow, I really don't know how I did it for all those years, because the restaurant business is very stressful.
Yeah.
But it was really fun.
Yeah.
And it was like a different outlet, it was like an outlet to be like, I don't know, like I got to put the flowers on the table, like silly things,
No, I know.
Make
That's
sure the
important.
bathrooms were good,
Yeah.
like things that I had real control over,
sure,
Yeah.
But other things like the health department, you have no control over. So, there's like all the things in the restaurant business where you're, so I try to also make sure that I have other things in my life that's just not all this, because it would, I think, drive you crazy otherwise.
Yeah, and you produce things, and you're producing things. One of the things I love about what you're doing is that going back to the sense of support and a family of people around you, which I think speaks to your own desire for that, which we can get to in a second, but is to nurture new and young filmmakers and to be willing to take risks on small projects. I mean, that's a big part of your your whole thing.
I really do like to do small movies. I think that there's always, it's so good to support, filmmakers that are just up and coming and have a voice, and they would never be able to have that voice if they didn't have somebody who was helping them. And I also think that in each, it's so good to have the young filmmakers, because you're going to find, there'll be a great, Darren Aronofsky or David, those people are emerging. So it's also really good to just always be in there. And I also think in independent film, there's much more creativity. Like you're allowed, when you're not having to have a million voices, it's really can be a very creative experience.
You talked about this a couple times too so far, this the excitement about being in a creative place. Do you find that you still have that creative influence and creative joy out of the multitude of bigger projects that you engage in?
I do.
There's room for it.
There's room for it, especially when, sometimes it doesn't feel like that, and it can be really, you really want to run in the other direction. You're like, wait, it's like, but when people are collaborating with you and they trust you and they trust your taste and your eye, and they want to discover someone, or they want to know, you're doing a big huge movie and you're about to cast 6 people. It's like, what's the balance of those people, from where they come from and who's up and coming and who's off a TV show and who does mostly movies, and just so the movie itself feels balanced. You can offer that to some of the bigger projects, but there's always a lot of voices. So it's really just hoping that they hear what that is.
And in that, so what's the most fun that you have casting? What's the most fun on a project overall, or on a specific one that you can think of?
Well, I'm working with Joseph Gordon-Levitt now on his TV show, and I'm having a lot of fun.
Is that the musical?
It has music in it. It's not a musical all the way, though.
But they're singing in it.
there's one part of it where they're doing that. It's not mostly musical. It's mostly like, Joe is starring and directing and writing in it. And it's just he's so talented and such a good guy.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
he's a true artist, but he's also a true guy. Like he's a true man, and he takes care of everybody, and he's really thinks about everyone. He's not.
Yeah.
So what's the fun in that for you, in the actual work of it, the actual process?
Because I feel safe, so then I can create, because I know that he respects what I bring, and so I feel like I can actually be really creative and offer ideas, because I really care.
That's so interesting and makes me so happy that actors get to work with you and go through the audition process, which can be thankless. But with you, this notion of creating you understand this notion of needing a safe space in order for you to be creative or vulnerable, sort of the same kind of deal, right?
It's exactly.
And what I don't understand is when you engage in an audition process with anyone, be it a casting director, showrunner, anybody who's running something, and they don't understand that on some level. They're like it feels like they're working against an actor, and so I love that you have that understanding both personally and know that it's right for actors and agents. You said too.
Yeah.
And also what I hear, and it really speaks to me, is the idea of feeling safe, feeling heard, feeling respected, because it's crazy, and this is for the audience listening, to hear from someone at your level and with my experience and other people we've spoken to, that casting directors are not always heard and respected. That sometimes you're asked for a list and your opinion is not necessarily heard and respected. And we talk to actors all the time about being able to have the agency to create enough leadership to walk into a room or onto a set and have the freedom and authority to be as creative as possible. And I know that what can shut me down versus what can open me up. I'm working on a project now where people actually care about what I think. And I'm surprised, which is crazy. Oh, they really care about what I think. And then you invest more. So, yeah.
Because you feel like your creative vision is going to be heard.
Yeah,
And
you're collaborating.
And you'll get, and I do find too that the people that don't listen and that are a little more closed off are either, I feel like that what their end product will be is not going to be as good because they're not open.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to be open. I think in life and everything you have to be open and be open to ideas. And if some door, you're like, oh, I should walk, you should walk through the doors that come to you, and I think when people just, it's like I always say, sometimes I'm like, they'll say, well, let me see who you're going to set up before you set them up. And I'm like,
really?
Sometimes. And I'm like, I'm not a secretary.
It's so ridiculous. Like, that's so frustrating.
Like,
even
I
to
just
hear.
get, that's one of my pet, I'm like, I'm not, like, you're going to preview, and it's always the people who know the least.
Or have the biggest bruised egos.
The biggest egos.
Yeah.
And they're just operating in and therefore they're not creative.
Is it just fear that they're showing up with? Is that it, do you
I
think?
don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you don't know. You don't know why they act that way.
Right.
It's like,
nor do you need to know. You don't. It's like you also need those
Usually
boundaries.
it's old wounds and various other things. Because even all those years we did with Oliver Stone, as challenging as he was to deal with, he always wanted, what's your opinion? Who do you like? Don't waste my time other than people you love.
Yeah.
And so you suddenly have permission, go, oh, yeah, I have some authority here.
Yeah, authority and trust.
And trust, yeah, which is huge. But it seems like you find people, you attract people to.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very grateful for the clients that I've had over the years that I've worked with for so long.
Yeah.
It's like it's Robert Rodriguez and David O. Russell and Darren Aronofsky, and it's like they're all and I love that because to me they're such artists, and so I love that I get to be in part of their process.
Yeah, and partnership.
Yeah.
What's frustrating to me as I'm hearing both of you speak is that like, for instance, if the Academy had any sense, I'd be sitting with 2 Oscar winners here. And where are your thoughts? It might be controversial to some folks, but I mean, it's fucking ridiculous that it's not the case, that there's not an award. All the same, where are your thoughts on the casting director as a position, as a function, being respected in the industry? So perhaps not for 2 women of your stature who have been at it for a long time, have a resume that speaks for itself. So the casting director coming up on some, TV show. As the technology changes too, and it seems to be more about volume and watching tapes, and does it have the respect that it should, or that it once had, or any of that?
I think it's going to happen. I mean, I think that there'll be that day. The BAFTAs this year honored a casting director, and I think that was a really big deal. And I think it's just a matter of time. And as long, way back when we weren't unionized, look how long that took. It's a matter of time. Like, I think it will happen, and it is frustrating. It's kind of crazy, but it's like a journey, right? Like it's like the journey for the casting director of because when that day happens, they'll remember the days when we didn't get recognized. I mean,
in the old age.
I just like how do you watch Silver Linings Playbook or I, Tonya, or like JFK and go like, oh my God, what is wrong with you people? Like, how do these women not have Oscars?
You know what? It started with. It's a pretty new field, and if you watch the casting by documentary, you'll understand that. And so for a lot of people who have run the Academy, and that has changed drastically, there were a lot of guys, older guys who are now older white men, who came from a world of casting directors or secretaries or assistants. They and it's the studios, right, and the directors who cast the roles. And since I was talking to somebody about this recently, everybody knows something about casting. Like, every department, every producer, every executive, they don't know really about costumes, and they don't know about cinematography, and they don't know about writing, but they all know about casting. Everyone's got an opinion. And so casting directors, people don't even know what casting directors actually do. And so it became something where casting directors were considered, and there were a lot of women, and in support positions. And Juliet Taylor once said, casting directors are shrinks and nurses and moms and sisters and daughters and helpers
exhausting.
And all those things. And I thought, when she said that, I don't want to be any of those things.
Right.
But I get it. And so all that happens. So it never was a position of authority. And it's only starting to be, even though it happened we think about it happened very quickly, when Marion Doherty started defining what casting directing was and all that stuff. So I think
whereas from an actor's standpoint, it's almost the epitome of authority.
Yeah.
Which speaks. Go ahead, please.
It's very. I think it's very interesting. I think, and I think that for a long time that the directors didn't want to give up. You would read in articles, "Oh, I found that kid in a mall." Like, did you? Did you find him in a mall? Because I know you didn't. I think they wanted to still be able to be the person over that, kind of putting the talent for their movie together, which is understandable because they put everything together for their movie. But I think it's just that separation. And I thought this year on the Academy Awards, David Rubin got up, and that was something that had never happened before. He got up and introduced and was on stage. That was so cool.
Yeah. And he is a casting director, and he's running the Academy. We'll see what happens because of that, and that there is a casting director branch. But it does speak to the need for the industry to understand how important this work really is. And it's not an afterthought, and it's not a support staff. It's actually a department and department head. And it's just like cinematography, production design, costume design, and so forth. And whenever they offer whenever it's time for the sound mixing Academy Award, I always go to the bathroom or fast forward, because why are those fuckers getting a trophy?
It's
They
important.
deserve it, absolutely.
Yes.
Not why are they not getting
Yes,
it? Because I have and not casting
Why aren't we?
directors.
Yeah.
And so, but I think that also speaks to an undermining of this and a need to fight for a place at the table, which I don't think actors really understand.
Yeah, it is. We really do have to fight for that. We're the only people that get credit in the main titles that don't. don't.
And it took a long time to get credit in the main titles. I remember fighting for that credit years ago. So,
and what are you seeing in the up and coming casting directors, people who are on your team, for instance, some of these young folks, their sense of what this is and where they can take it and where they want to go with it?
I mean, I think that the people that are on my team, I think that they're in a space where there's a lot of work coming their way, and so I think that they have a unique position where they just get to like create and do the jobs, and they don't have to, because one of the things about being a casting director is you're an independent contractor. You have to find a job every day of the week. You're always looking for a job, and movies fall apart every day. It's kind of a crazy thing, and especially now now with movies are you really have to be in the sort of the streaming platform business of it's changing. So I think that that's what's younger people who are coming up, younger casting directors, or people who are just starting out, are having to. It's like a little bit of a different business, And you're right, what you had said earlier about people watching a lot of self tapes. The self tape thing has become a really.
Do you like it?
Sometimes. I mean, I like it when I'm in a rush, and I need.
Are you often in a rush?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it, right? Like, it's casting ink now to a certain extent, and can you get 13 people on your team to process as much stuff in the self-tape from Chile and all of it?
Like you want to get you need something, and you need over the week you're like, oh, can I have people self-tape on the weekend? You can actually utilize the weekends. That's what I found with self-tapes. In general, I like to be in the room, and I think it's important to be in the room as much as you can. I think with self-tapes, people have the opportunity to do everything exactly perfect, so you're getting this kind of
polished performance.
So it's like a performance, so you're not seeing what the other things that they may be doing in the spaces in between, which I think is important.
Do you want that process to be like we're in rehearsal in the audition?
I just think when you're in an audition with somebody that you're able to. I believe that auditions are moments. That when someone comes in, you see moments of brilliance. You're like, this is like this. You see that moment when you're like, oh wow, they're connected. That's like brilliant. I think if someone comes in and they do a perfect audition, I wonder if that's all you're ever going to get.
Yeah.
And that, to me, it's the moments rather than the whole thing. I mean, of course, you want someone to be able to understand the scene from beginning to end and do the thing, but I don't know. I think that, to me, because I think when you're doing a movie or a TV show, it's all about editing the best performance together. So if you can see those glimpses of that, that's what I look for.
And I wonder if what you're talking about,
right?
Yeah.
In terms of actors, it feels to me like there has to be, to achieve those moments, some sort of letting go, some sort of letting it breathe, being present, that sort of stuff, as opposed to canning something, crafting it brilliantly, and then opening it up and dumping it in the audition room.
Right.
Each moment perfect,
and to know your lines so that you can play.
Right, that too.
Because it's like a lot of times, sometimes you'll have an actor come in and they're like, they've got it planned exactly how you want to do it. And if you try to, hey, that's one of the things. It's like you should always be prepared to play.
So, and that's an interesting thing also, because for our audience listening, a lot of people still, and we find that when people come to class, they believe, and I understand why you guys believe this, that you should have your audition performed, planned, and presented. And there's a different way to prepare, so you learn your words differently. You're available to play. Those moments of discovery and brilliance can happen. So what do you love in an actor that an actor brings in? What makes you go, oh my God, that is a real artist. That is someone exciting who I want to play with, and I want to present them to my director collaborator. Well, what is that? What is that thing for you?
And to be clear, it's presenting them to that list of folks, those directors that you talked about, and I think it's so important to understand how you described your own safe space and the creativity that you want to bring to it. You can't show up and half-ass this stuff to want to be counted among you, Mary, and the directors that you work with. There's no room for but I'm scared, so I need to control everything amateur shit. I just don't think it's
I think what you just said too, I think the word discovery is a really important word, because I think when you come into an audition, and you're connected to the material, and you've thought about it, and you can think about all the different ways, and you think about the background of the character and what makes them tick, and so that you're not just saying, I need to say this word this way, right? Like it's like you can be fluid in your creativity in the room, because that's what's gonna spark interest, and like you're gonna find something that's like, oh my God, this is amazing, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody who's,
And that excites you.
yeah, and that's somebody who's truly artistic in their approach.
Do you have any thoughts about it? Has that happened? Like somebody who you saw that happen, you said, oh my God, nobody really knew who they were or had never seen that from them. And then you saw it happen, and then it turned into a performance that on a film that, translated to the beyond, and they,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've been really fortunate to see it a lot, and I'm trying to, like, I actually have,
Okay.
I think that oh God, I wish I could like think of something like right off. I feel like I've definitely seen, just like even like, on Euphoria, that was like an amazing project, because that was such a discovery thing, and you got to see Sam Levinson just like working with these kids who had all varying degrees of acting experience, and how he was able to bring something, make the most amazing show.
Yeah.
From various people, some who had no experience, to people who are, like Zendaya, who'd been, acting for a long time.
But still had nobody really, she was not a household name.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she was in her
world.
age group.
Yeah.
But now she's amazing. She's
Yeah.
like she's a rock star.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to think of recently, like, we just did Bad Boys, and Jacob Scipio, who Lindsay pretty much found him, and he's going to be, I think, a big deal. Like he's from the UK, and he's really looks at it as a craft. And he came off that movie they ended with him, and it's probably the franchise will go on with him, which is very exciting. Like, he's in his 20s, and he's going to have that journey.
So what is it about him? So he comes to this in a creative way. What does that look like? How does that
I think
show
he
up?
comes to it with like how has really thought about the character, has really thought about what he can do with the material, and has come in the room and be willing to do whatever it takes in the room, and be open to changing what it is. How do we change? How do we kind of like try it this way? Let's try it this way. Because I don't think anybody really knows what way it should or shouldn't be. I think it's the ability to be flexible too.
I wish, let's put that on a loop. Because,
But seriously,
I mean,
yeah.
like, especially coming from you, and
Yeah.
Risa says it too, but I think because there's so much on the line for actors and their rent and their health insurance and et cetera, it's easy for the mind to take over and try to control things, but to the exclusion of that discovery that you're talking about, which is really the value. That's the stuff that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, that leads to, hey, let's book this person.
And it's tough for them too, because you're just what you said, they have to try to control it because they have to pay their rent. And
Right.
so, but I think the one thing is that there's actually, you don't have any control, at all. And so when you don't get a job, it's not because of you. It's because of a million reasons that don't have anything to do with you.
But when you walk in the room with that kind of openness and that sense of let's play, I'm being in a creative space, my mindset is that way, I'm looking at this as a craft and as an exploration. When you do that, it affects you, gets you excited. It gets the directors excited, right?
Because you can feel it.
Yeah.
It's tangible.
Yeah.
That kind of excitement is tangible.
Yeah.
And if they don't get the job, you'll remember like, oh, wow, they're really great. I'm definitely going to get, the next thing. Like, you'll know that the next time you're like, oh, there's this great person. I can't wait for you to meet,
Yeah.
You said that sort of discovery happens quite a bit for you in the audition process. How are you working with actors? Is it as a director? Is it that you have something in mind that you're trying for, or want to check the flexibility, so let's switch up the circumstances or play for the sake of it? Or how are you working with an actor to get what you need?
Well, I think checking the flexibility, and a lot of times you won't have had that when you start a project, you won't have had the director yet. So you don't know really what they're thinking. And sometimes they'll have a completely different point of view of the scene and what it's supposed to be. So I think it's like you play a little bit just to see, how you can sort of like adapt to whatever the situation is. And, sometimes people come in and like one of the things with TV, which is hard for me, is like you'll walk into a room and they have the person do it once each time and they say, thank you. And
When you're in a session with producers.
With producers and the executives.
Yeah.
And that's just really hard. It's like at least let them do the first one twice.
Yeah.
So that they can
Still
get it
warm
out,
up.
so they can shake it out and be like, sometimes it's just you want to be able to like, okay, now that you got that first one out, let's just do it again, and where you can kind of breathe and you feel and you're like you're not so like tight, and I think it's just that giving them a place where they feel like oh I can breathe.
Yeah. And why are producers and executives just processing quickly like that?
I think TV is I find it mostly in like old school TV, like network TV.
Yeah.
I think they don't know. I don't know. I guess if I was going to say, I would say they probably don't have the time. And maybe because TV is so fast on the day that they figure if they can't do it in the room, they won't be able to do it on the day.
But I think you're right about the old way of thinking, because it's just an old way of thinking. The actor comes in, they do their thing, that's supposed to be it, and then you move. If you don't see it, you don't see it. They don't really necessarily know that they can work with people. They're just not used to it, and they're just stuck in an old loop of. Because I know so many directors and showrunners who just they don't know to give direction. No. It's just not their way.
And it's frustrating because you'll put together a great day and you'll be like, this is the best day. Oh my gosh. And then like the person, and it's like, but you could have told them to switch it up.
Yeah.
You can't read your mind.
Yeah. I find those sessions very frustrating.
Very frustrating.
Yeah.
And I find it's hard on us and it's hard on the actors.
Which is why when, a lot of agents will say to me, well, they have to come in for producers, but because I guess they know it's me, they'll say, okay, well, it's you. I know you'll work with them. But sometimes I don't. Sometimes they're just not right and I don't have the time. But also, I say to them all the time about it, like being in a room with producers is not necessarily to their advantage.
Exactly.
Because they're not going to get the time and space to really work.
So it's so true. It's like, don't make it about that, and people, they let them come in for me for the same reasons because they know that I'll work with them. But, and it's also too, it's like, they won't read for a guest star. It has to be offer only. And it's like, well, like that, there's all these like weird things in TV that the agents have about like, it's very different than film.
Yeah. But you still find people are offer only people, and still that's the case.
Yeah.
But I feel like the agents are the only ones that want that. Because I think like if you're an actor, let's do the work. Like let's.
And I love it. I've had a few agents lately call and say, so-and-so will come in and read because he loves this part and really knows that he has to show that part of himself. And I'm just like, yeah, that's fantastic. And we're all in this collaborative spirit, but I understand that ego is ego, and agents are trying to protect actors from that.
Right, and then if they don't get the job, then somehow somehow it's the agent's fault. So sometimes it can be easier for them to just say offer only. And then you also get offer only from the covering, and it's never even been run by the point agent, the manager.
Yeah, because there's a whole team of people.
There's a whole team of people.
So where do you find actors, or where does your team find actors who... there's the traditional way through agents who you trust and agents who you deal with, but where else do you find actors?
Well, I see a lot of theater.
You still do?
I do.
Yeah.
I went to the Pasadena Playhouse yesterday.
Really?
Saw Alfred Molina and The Father. It was very good. And I have season tickets to the Geffen. I try to go as much as I can. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I forget to go, and then that's why I have season tickets to the Geffen, because that makes me remember to go.
Yeah.
Is that business or pleasure for you, or both?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's both. I love going to the theater.
Yeah.
Sometimes after a long day, you're like, I can't. I love going to New York and seeing theater. I'll be at home watching a commercial, and my office always wants to kill me because I'll be like, who's that in that Audi commercial? Like, I'll make them track down, because it's like
Spielberg used to do that. We'd get, I'd always get the call going, there's a person person who did that thing on Friday night, and I'm like, what thing on Friday night? What commercial? Like, so you have to track that down. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll if I'm looking for like a young something, I'll I actually got the girl who played young Emma Watson in Noah from doing that.
Wow.
Because you find, you'll see it and you're like, oh, and
who's that?
Yeah, who is that?
Yeah.
And I think, look, I think social media can be a place.
What is that like?
Well, I think you can just find different, you're on social media and you're like, oh, I didn't know that John C. Reilly had a son, that was also modeled, like just by kind of being in that like space and like looking like on Instagram and on Facebook, so that it can be, social media is, it's good and bad, I find.
This isn't people like sending you stuff saying, hey, check out my reel. This is,
no, I don't answer those.
Right, good. Yeah.
That's too much. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't communicate with people on social media, but I do look on social media, and I do try to find like,
boundaries.
And I try to, we try to do as many like, I don't know, we do like, we go to the showcases, like different people in the office will go to the different showcases for the schools, and I do a general every day.
You do? Mm-hmm. Wow, and who do you just, an agent will call and say, will you meet so-and-so?
Yeah, so I have my one spot every day. So I do that
and
too.
Is that supporting agents and actors, or is that, I need to do this for me and my work?
It's both.
Yeah.
It's both.
Because I get the sense, like, again, like, there's a generosity that you just have, and I wonder whether one is just the generosity, straight up pure generosity, and one is, hey.
But I find people through those generals all the time. Like, you'll be like, oh wow, that person's good for this, that, like, and they're most likely people that are like, they're interesting and they're new, and you haven't been able to see their work yet. Like, I remember meeting Heath Ledger on a general and just being like, wow, like this kid, like spending an hour and a half with him because I was just so blown away by him.
Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you meet really interesting. I remember meeting Benicio with you on a general on Mr. Destiny.
Oh my God.
Do you remember?
Yeah. But it's fun to do that and to find, because you're in the room with people and then you have a feel for them.
Right. So you're not just looking at their work. Like, I'll always like, those, oh, did you look at my reel? I'm like, no, I always meet people first. I don't look at your reel. I meet you as a human.
That's great.
Yeah.
I feel like that's so valuable, especially for up and coming casting directors who may be from a generation where it's all phone and watching self-tapes and that disconnection. I wonder how we can maintain some of that human interaction, that space in between that you talked about that shows up in an audition with some of these younger folks.
I think it's really important to meet people. I think it's important to talk on the phone. Everybody emails. It's just email, and like, it's like no one. I'm like, there's no tone in email. How do you know? I'm like, could you call? Could you just pick up the phone and have a conversation? You know, because everyone's really about just, and I think it's a volume thing. It's so much easier just to send an email and not have to hear back. But like, I feel like I think that makes people less connected.
Yeah, there's no human connection, not really, in any of that. Yeah, and it is a lot of volume. So what do you say to actors out there listening who are thinking, how do I get through the walls of all of this to you when I may not have an agent, or I may have an agent who isn't fancy, or, I mean, I could be in Euphoria, or those people who may not be on your radar, who aren't coming in through those channels, or John C. Reilly is not their dad, like, because there's so many amazing, talented actors out there who feel like they have no agency and they're not invited to the party.
Yeah, it's hard.
What do you say to those people?
I mean, I think that, I think it's important to just do your work. Because I think by doing the work, you'll eventually grow into a place where someone will see you. I think it's really important to do that. I think you have to really commit to your craft and do the work. In terms of getting to, actors access on Breakdown, I mean, we go through all of those and we ask for self-tapes and we look at everything. So if you can be on Breakdown and you can see what those are, we try to go through the people still drop off headshots. I try to hang on to those and bring people in if they're right. It's hard to say, like, how do you break through? But I think that I believe that if you work really hard and you're like, this is what I'm going to do, you make your own life. You make your own way. You manifest, whatever the word is, if it's, because there's a lot of people that come here who want to be famous versus be actors. And those are two very different things. Yeah. And I think you have to focus on like the work.
Or there sometimes is I know I'm good, but nobody's seeing me, and and then they stop.
They stop.
Yeah.
And you get, and leave what you did in the audition in the room. Don't carry it with you, because that's damaging to your like psyche.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I think
How do
that
you
you
let
just
it go?
have to walk away. Like, when I feel like, to me, if you go in the room, you do a great audition, that's the work. If you get the job, it's like icing. Like, because there's too many reasons why you don't get the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really a hard thing. And when people and people do stop because they get so frustrated, Like, we had a girl who worked for us who just was on the series Hentified that just came out, and she started working at Betty May, and she was my personal assistant for a little bit, and then she became a casting assistant. And what she learned by being a casting assistant was taught her how to be and to really work on everything, because she was in the room for all the auditions, how to get a series. And she's now lead on a series, which is cool.
Did you see that in her when she was an assistant? Did you know that about her?
I loved her. Like,
Yeah.
I just always, Carrie Martin, she's the best. She, when she was working as my personal assistant, I just loved her. I was like, I just love her. She was such a good girl,
Yeah.
had so much heart and such a hard worker, and really like a good girl. And then when she did the casting assistant, she was smart and quick and enthusiastic and really loved it. And I think that all of that helped. And she says that learning what I learned in the room with the auditions, what helped me be able to be a better actor.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Did you always have this level of lift as I rise generosity? Let's form, the family and the team and lift them up. Is that something you developed? Because it feels like that keeps coming up.
I
supporting
think
and
that
helping.
I have that because they're like my family, So it's like they support me, It's like really like.
Do you create these families?
They're
these
like, yeah,
families
they come to, they make my life great. So I'm happy to, it's like it works both ways that way. Like, I think that there's a lot of people out there who are, struggling and don't know, where they belong. And I was definitely one of them. And, I found Risa, and now she taught me a lot of things. And I felt like that being, when we worked in Alamar, like that was family, like. And we still all kind of have that thing with, with Jewel and Heidi, and it's like I think especially in today's world.
Yeah. Why is that so important to you personally?
I think I don't know. I don't know. I'm adopted, and so I think that like I've always been like looking for that. I've always like, I have a great family, but I was always just like looking like, oh. And I just I can feel that in other people. Like I can, and so I want to create an environment where everybody can have a safe place.
That's so lovely. And I think like in this industry, which gets painted with this monolithic, like it's the big bad entertainment industry, it's made up of individuals who have soft hearts, who gravitate towards this creativity because it reminds them of their own humanity, and even like where rubber meets the road, like Point of Sale, an actor walking into your room with you, you're a sensitive human being who seems like wants to help, wants to be moved. And I think if an actor can understand that, even as they're preparing, even like when the email comes in with, I have an audition with Mary, that, oh, there's space for a connection here, there's space for presence and discovery and creativity and play. And so let's not torture myself with, I hope she loves me, please mommy love me, but like let's communicate and connect and have a creative experience. Like that might make the industry better.
Yeah. I think, I sometimes when I get really frustrated with people and I'm like super aggravated, I always have to go back to the like Deepak Chopra thing where he's like, everybody's doing the best they can. And I'm always like, okay.
Are they?
Are they really? But if you can keep that in your heart,
yeah.
because sometimes people are, we all know what they can be like. So, but if you can try to keep that in your heart so you can forgive them and also not go down to their level. Because it's really easy. You get really frustrated. It's super easy to just be like, really? You want to go down there? Because you can easily go there. If people push you too far, So it's good to stay.
But providing that for actors, and I, like you said earlier, I don't know that actors get that everywhere. There are a lot of rooms they walk into, a lot of places they go where that isn't the environment that's set for them. So remembering that people are dealing with so much, and to be able to we talk all the time about bringing in generosity in the spirit of offering and collaborating and realizing. Someone told me in class on Saturday, she said, I was in an audition with a casting director who was reading with me and she was spewing venom at me. And I just shut down. I said, but that was your choice, because I don't really believe she was spewing venom. She was dealing with something. But what if you looked her in the eye and the heart and offered something to her and tried to engage her? And she said, I couldn't. I said, well, but had you, next time that happens, just try it,
That's such good advice.
But it's hard because they shut down, and now they expect everybody to be spewing venom at them. Right. I mean,
rooms can be cold.
Yeah.
And people have other stuff going on, so it's like, it's and it is, sometimes you walk, like, I think a lot of people too, don't keep not everyone has an office, right? So like you go to a different space depending on what you're working on. And I think that in and of itself makes it a hard thing, because it's hard to make a space when it's not your space. Terrible lights, bad, that whole thing makes it, I think.
You're just camping out somewhere.
You're camping out.
Yeah.
So it's hard to kind of make it feel like a good place to be.
On top of the fact that you've got 130 cooks in the kitchen, and everyone's got a different idea, and you're trying to get this thing done, and just
a lot of pressure.
Lost an actor, and the showrunner's pissed off, and blah 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 blah, and then the actor walks in,
with all that stuff loaded.
With all that stuff loading,
Like with the expectation that
people
person
on your phone sheet and,
reveal their hearts, which is that's hard.
Yeah,
so how has it changed the business for you besides email and self-tapes? What else feels
by the
different?
way, I was saying, and this totally dates me, but like when I started, we didn't even, fax machines were new.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. No, I know. It's like, how did we do it?
It's like crazy. I don't know. I mean, it's like we'd and all the boxes of photos, and the agents used to send over their submission in a big envelope, and we used to put them in boxes and alphabetize them and go through them.
I loved that.
I loved it too, because you could touch it.
You could touch the picture.
I really did, and I'm all about that still.
Now you get a touch screen now. You can,
right. Like you're like on the breakdown. You're like,
right.
But you're looking at these little tiny thumbnails, 100 a page. There was something about being able to organize your thoughts and your creative sort of process by looking at those pictures and making piles and
making like a board in your head. Like you could see now if you're trying to go through the submissions, you have to click a different button to look at the resume instead of just turning over the photo. It's just it's like a whole.
It's a lot on the eyes and the brain.
It's a lot on the eyes and the
brain. We
didn't
have computers.
No, and no, we didn't. We didn't have email. I mean, it's crazy to think about. And then getting the tapes out. Like the VHSs, and if you had to get it to New York, if you didn't make FedEx, you were dead.
Yeah. No, I remember. Yeah.
Running to FedEx and oh God, we missed FedEx. DHL, it's $1,000, but we're gonna get because otherwise we're in big trouble.
Yeah. But the shift is, and this is a shift for actors too, who always say, yeah, but I prefer to be in the room. Yeah, but it's changed, full stop. So
it's changed.
So how do you address the change with openness?
You just have to, I think it's important to try to look at everything that comes through. too.
That's an impossible mandate.
It
though.
is, but it is.
Do you
but
then
if
not
you,
sleep?
Well, you have other people that are looking at it with
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Because you're
yeah.
not going to be able to do it. But it's always good to be able to do that and be like, okay, maybe not for this, but oh God, they're right for that.
And you never know. Like, I looked at a self-tape yesterday because I'm in a pilot, so I was working on Sunday, and I was just like, I'm going to get through these 27 self-tapes. And, and I popped one in, and I was just, it was late, and I thought, this is the last one I'm looking at. And the work was gorgeous. And it was an experienced actor. She chose to self-tape instead of coming in the room, which I'm finding some actors, when they get to a certain age, they're like, I can do this better at home than sit in your waiting room and go through all that. And that's fine. And her work was absolutely stunning. It was like I was watching the movie right there. I was watching the show. So once in a while you go, oh, well, it's good to actually slog through.
Yeah, you have to slog through all the self-tapes. Like it's like that's one of the things, like, okay, we have all these self-tapes, but you
never
find
know what you're gonna
somebody.
find.
And also it's like when it's the same as when you're in a room. You'll be in the room all day and you'll be seeing people and you're just, you start to kind of glaze over a little bit after. And then when someone comes in and you're like, whoa, like they like have something. It's the same with self-tapes. You'll be just watching, and then something kind of hits you.
And that whoa is what? That magic, that presence, that discovery, those spaces between.
Yeah, and you can tell they're really into it.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that they're really into it, because that's the thing. If you're really into the story you're telling and the work you're doing and you love it, that translates.
It does. It comes across.
Yeah.
Do you read with actors? Like, as in your
You know what? I don't that much anymore because I have a lot of the interns are actors, so I let them. It depends on the situation. Like if I feel like I'm not as good at it as I used to be because I don't do it as much.
I wonder the difference in terms of you evaluating is the wrong word, but getting a sense of that actor being in it with them versus on the outside watching them be in it with somebody else.
I find it's great both ways. Like I'll now come in the room and watch, and I like to be able to watch where it's like I'm really watching, but I also sometimes I'm like, okay, I want to read with them because I know what I want them to get from the reader.
Yeah.
Because I think readers are tricky. Like I feel like it's like sometimes if you're having an actor come in who's acting for a reader, they want to be seen too, and so it's not necessarily the place for that.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. We have a lot of our actors here at the studio be readers because it's a great exercise for them and they understand what's needed in terms of the generosity. But
for them, it's like they're just
like,
coming home. It's
So that's different because this is their space and this is their world and they learn from it and they just want to be present for people. But you've got to find
the people
a way to do
when
that.
Carrie, who I was talking about earlier, who was unidentified. She's a great reader because she knew exactly what it was supposed to be, and she did a great job at that.
There's that great Bob Joy story about a director telling him that he was going to be the reader for a movie, but that wasn't it. He was actually auditioning, but they just wanted him to come in to be the reader so they could get a sense of him, and they gave him the job thereafter.
I think it was Milos Forman who did that to him. Yeah. But that's another thing. Yeah.
The games.
So do you have a favorite experience recently where you just were, this is exactly what it's supposed to be. This is what I love the most about this? Whether it's in the room or making a list or coming up with an idea or being in a collaboration where you're heard and seen.
Well, one of my great things that I always love was with Robert Rodriguez when we were doing Sin City. And I've worked with him since the faculty and I worked with him for a really long time. And when we were doing Sin City, they didn't want to let him and Frank Miller share the Directors Guild said no, they can't share directing credit. And so Robert went and said, I'm going to take a cut and shot by credit, and gave me the casting director credit, which you're not allowed to do by the DGA. You're not allowed to say casting director on the screen. So on Sin City, in the biggest letters, he had casting director.
Wow.
And that's never allowed because of the DGA.
You can't use the word director.
Now, why did he do that, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think he's very generous. He's very generous.
But he didn't need to be. He didn't need to be.
No.
He's appreciative of your work.
He's appreciative.
Right?
He's generous, and I think he was like, "I'm not going to take the director credit, so I'm going to give it to somebody else."
Interesting.
Oh, that's interesting.
You
yeah.
know?
Yeah. And why was that meaningful to you?
Well, because going back to us, the respect of being a casting director, we don't often get that respect and recognition, and it goes back to the Academy Award thing. It's like he did something that made it. It was like a point. I mean, he was making a point. I think.
Yeah.
And
Do you remember? I was just talking to Steve about this. The days on Main Street in that suite with Oliver and Arnold. I remember that you were sort of at mission control there. Exactly. I remember exactly where you were sitting and managing all that. What was that? Where were you in your process then? Was it something? Because it was hard. We were doing a lot. And was that a moment where you felt like I just got to learn this thing, or where you felt like this is what I love, or like what was that period, that moment in time when all of that was going on?
I mean, I think it was all those things. I think I was like, I definitely was overwhelmed. But I do think that time taught me how to, I don't know, multitask, for lack of a better word, and be able to actually do more than one thing at once. I'm able to do that today because of those experiences. And I think I really wanted to learn it, but it was like, I was scared of Oliver and I was scared of Arnold. I was like scared of both of them, and just kind of like, I was just a little bit like a little deer in the headlights, but also really wanting to do a good job.
Yeah. But I remember one time I heard you talking to Arnold. I was in my office, and I heard this going on in the bullpen, and I thought, do I go and rescue her, or do I let her do it? And I came out and I said, what happened? You said, I got rid of him. He's gone.
I did get rid of him.
Yeah. And I thought, she can do anything. She can do that. She can do anything. Yeah.
I think it goes back to the days of waiting tables at Sookies and graveyard shift and having to deal with all the crazy people. Because, that's the one thing about this business, right? I mean, there's a lot of people who are, a handful.
Yeah.
As we get close to wrapping up here, describe your experience as a woman in the industry, how things have changed now, coming up, getting to the place where you've achieved the level of success that you've achieved, and the journey as a woman in this industry.
Well, I think it's definitely changed a lot. What comes to my mind when you say that is I go back to what you said that Julia Taylor said about being, a casting director, being a sister, a mother. I've definitely felt like a lot of I tried to be very much a caretaker of the directors and make sure that whatever it is that they needed, that was, I felt like that was part of my job, and it still is, because I think that what they do is all consuming, and they do need someone to be like, what would you like to eat? Do you need to, just to kind of make them feel safe too, because everyone needs that. I think it's a whole new world, and the things that went on in those days can't go on anymore. Like there was a lot of things that, there's a lot of stories and inappropriate behavior nonstop, but you just sort of dealt with it. I mean, it was what it was. You weren't going to be like, I don't know.
But what was that for us? I think about that and why that was just okay. Not okay, but why you just let it slide.
We put up with it.
Why we put up with it.
Because what would we have, I think we would have been perceived as difficult.
Yeah.
If we had, if we had said anything and that we navigated it, I think. I remember when I was still working at the agency, and one of the partners pulled me down onto his lap, and I called him a jerk. and then I noticed about a month and a half later that he hadn't talked to me, and I was like, oh no. And he's like, you don't call the partner in the company a jerk. And I said, well, you were acting like one. Needless to say, that job had to end, and he was like, you'll never be anything in this business. He was very mean to me and said all these really disrespectful things because I didn't allow him to pull me onto his lap.
Yeah, I guess we tolerated that.
We did.
Yeah, which is
we didn't have a choice.
Yeah, we did. We just didn't know we did.
Yeah. You're right, because no one was
Listen, you stood up to the guy and called him a jerk. That's more than most people.
Yeah,
do.
but after I did that, I was like,
Yeah.
I felt like that I would never do that again.
Yeah.
Because of what happened and the
Yeah.
way that it went. I was like, oh, I guess I can't, defend myself. Like in that environment.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's different. How is it different now? I mean, what are you seeing happening with a whole new crop of women coming up, women casting directors, women directors, women writers? I know that, again, you nurture a lot of women filmmakers. So what is
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I feel like it's an equal playing field finally. I think if you see how many women, look how, you as a woman director, that was very hard for you to have to, you had many obstacles, and I think those obstacles have been taken away and women are being given opportunities now. Almost like where it's like they, like to make up, I don't know if it's to make up, whatever the case may be, it's like really become an amazing it's become an amazing thing as the women are being allowed to express themselves as directors, and it's equal. It feels equal. It feels like that they even have a little bit more of an edge.
Yeah, certainly it's helpful to be a woman these days, but it's still not. It hasn't quite hit a 50-50.
The numbers
place.
suggest that
the numbers,
Not the
suggest-
numbers.
Yeah. But there's opportunity.
Yeah, there's opportunity, and I think that the people that would act the way that they would act can't act that way. Like it's just a whole new day. They can't. There's like a new look. People are looking at people differently, and if you're a person who's misbehaving, whether you're being abusive just in general, if you're being,
And not just sexually abusive, but just abusive.
just abusive.
Yeah.
Like that is no longer allowed. It's
Well,
no longer.
after Harvey, we'll see what happens. The next generation will either say, yeah, it's still happening, we're dealing with it, just a little differently, or they'll say, oh, I can't believe you had to deal with that. But it's time will tell.
Feels very. One of the things that I felt like about it is that it felt very bipolar a little bit. Like when all that stuff started to happen, everybody went to this. And I think balance is the thing that needs to be found, too.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a little bit of the men are terrified.
And so they should be.
I agree.
I think we'll be. I think it's okay that we're terrified.
Okay,
right?
good.
I think it is.
Good.
And by the way,
Yeah.
to me, that frames up for instance, my fear in a situation where I'm not the victim here. So this is a process and some heavy lifting that men have to do and deal with their own fear.
Yeah.
But whether it's race or gender, I don't think framing up me and my challenges with my fear or whatever that is, or I don't even know how to deal with a woman now, one may say, shut the fuck up and deal with yourself.
Yeah, that's
figure
true.
your shit out.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about is listening and connecting and communicating and consent. Those are all notions that a man should have. And I think he has nothing to fear if he hasn't been an asshole and is adhering to some of those basic principles. And they are basic, I think. It's just that a lot of I'm on a soapbox here, but a lot of the boys coming up, particularly my age, 40, 43, were never taught that, right? We were taught to be tough. We were taught to dominate.
Assert yourself.
And so then you don't have
Yeah.
any of those listening skills. So, but that's heavy lifting for us to do, I think.
I think it is. I think it is on the, it is on them. But I have heard people say, I've heard producers or
Sure.
agents say that they don't want to hire a female assistant because they're nervous that something
Right.
could
It's-
get
it's-
misconstrued.
it's the Mike
which
Pence-
that's the
That's the pendulum. Yeah, that people are overprotecting.
they're overprotecting.
Yeah.
It's the Mike
so
Pence
it's like
thing.
that's the
I won't go into a room with another woman without my
Yeah.
wife there, and that's
Yeah.
so fucked up. And still, it
But that doesn't-
it comes back to the
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah.
which is manner
That's
and
right.
control.
Yeah. By the way,
looking
if
out
you
for
could go
themselves.
into a room with a woman without your wife, what
What exactly would happen? What are you afraid of?
yeah, what are you? What? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that whole world is pretty disturbed. So what do you see going forward? What do you want for yourself?
Where are you in 5 years?
Yeah, 5
in
years
all
and
this?
10 years.
10 years.
What does that look like for you? You've grown
Is there an
this
exit
amazing
strategy? Are you on a beach at some point?
I'm somewhere at some point, for sure. I mean, I think that, this year, Betty May will be 25 years.
Betty May's your company, just so
Yeah.
people are listening.
And what
know.
does Betty
Yeah.
May stand for?
Betty May stands for, it's named after my mom and my grandma.
Okay.
And today's my mom's birthday, so it's a very,
birthday.
it's a good day for this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I see me doing, I don't know. I feel like I want to back away a little, but still be there. You know, I feel like one of the things with Betty May is that people can still create and be there with or without, you know, depending on how much I want to be there.
Is it hard for you to step away?
I'm learning. I'm learning how to do that. I'm learning how to step away. And I don't know, there's lots of other things I want to do. So I feel like, let's see what happens, you know? I keep thinking about, you know, I have like, I don't know, I just have ideas of other businesses I want to do, which is kind of crazy. But
Like what?
well, I've done these, a couple of times, these wellness retreats on the weekend where I kind of bring people and we do like a whole day of like wellness for yourself. And I kind of like would love the idea of kind of having a space for that, where literally like they come, they do yoga, they do myofascial, you teach them about composting and sound baths and like that whole, because I think that especially in what we do, you need to have that for your health and well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I loved doing those couple of retreats. They were great. And I would get people, would get like agents and managers, and they would come, and it would just be, you would see them in this whole other thing where I'm like, look, it can be about you today.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And then we would send them all.
But that interestingly still speaks to your
Support.
nurturing
Yeah.
and supporting.
Yeah.
So, you know, that you have this desire or this yearning to create that for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's also part of being a cancer, of cancers. I think
Yeah.
that cancer has that need to.
And what does that do?
create a
How does that
home.
feed you? What does that do for you?
Oh, it just makes me it makes me very happy. It makes me very happy and feel like when I would do those retreats, they would be such hard work. And I would like, by the end of the weekend, I would feel so like I brought something to them that was like, that they would never be able to have unless it was like, here, let's try that, you know?
Yeah.
And it made me feel very satisfied.
Yeah.
It's very gratifying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Any final thoughts about the journey from that moment sitting on the couch in the flowered dress?
In the flower dress? I'm
at
trying to remember which
Radford?
dress that was.
I don't know, some flower dress you had.
Like I don't know. It's been an amazing journey. I've had an amazing journey, and I love what I do. I really do. So thank you for introducing me to.
You're welcome.
casting.
I'm glad you ran with it, because I had no interest in doing that, but also watching you build this amazing empire and this family that you've built with all these incredible people and directors and artists and your staff and your dogs.
Yeah, my dogs there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been beautiful. It's been a really beautiful thing, and I just I'm looking forward to continuing, you know, doing, you know, great things and learning every day. I love learning. I think that's the thing too. It's like on every movie you probably learn something else, you know, which I think is great.
Cool. Thank you for being
Thank you so
here.
much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
We know that you're feeling the stress of these challenging and uncertain times. We are too. And it's possible that you have no idea how to nourish yourself as an actor, as an artist in all of this. And we're here to tell you that that's okay.
Everyone we know in and around this industry is feeling all that. And we want you to know that we're here to help. Every month, we open up our online studio doors and invite you to join us for a virtual workshop where we dismantle and reconfigure your approach to your craft, the industry, auditions, bookings, self-tapes, and taking care of your creative soul.
It's our mission to make you feel empowered and confident, even excited about what's ahead and what you can do right now.
So join Steve and me online, meet our amazing teachers, find out what actions you can take in order to thrive, and let us guide you to the success you're looking for.
To reserve your spot, check out the summit link in our show notes to sign up. Space is limited, but we want you to be there, so click the link.
We love sharing this content with our community. We offer it 100% free, and it's our privilege to do so. If you're loving this podcast and are interested in offering something in return, go ahead and subscribe to the Acting Podcast. Then find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to your podcast and leave us an honest rating and review. Your words will help us bring this work to even more actors and artists around the world.
Thank you so much for listening and for being here with us. We love how this community shows up for us and for each other, online and in the studio. Come visit us online at thebgbstudio.com. Jump into a class with us. We're here to get you into the kind of shape necessary to be successful.